She said, "You're not giving me full access to your savings. That's financial abuse." I replied, "You're right." Then I just dumped her and moved on with my life. I'm Aaron, 31M. My girlfriend, well, ex now, Lena is 29F. We were together just under 2 years, living together for 8 months. On paper, we probably looked solid. No cheating scandals, no screaming matches, no dramatic breakups at bars. Just two adults with jobs and a shared lease. At least that's what I thought. Lena has always had a strong personality. She's sharp, opinionated, and never wrong in her own mind. I used to tell myself that was confidence. She'd correct waiters, talk over people in group settings, and had a habit of explaining my own job to me in front of others. I learned pretty early that disagreeing with her wasn't worth the headache, so I picked my battles. That part's on me. Money was one of those things I thought we were aligned on. I work in software, make decent money, and I'm careful with it. Not cheap, just intentional. I've always kept my savings separate. Emergency fund, long-term savings, investments. Lena knew this. We split rent and utilities proportionally. I covered most of the groceries. She handled smaller stuff. It felt fair. She, on the other hand, hated the idea of separate. She called it half-committed energy. Anytime finances came up, she'd make little comments. "It's weird you don't trust me with money." Or, "If we're building a future, why are you acting single?" I brushed it off as talk. Annoying, but just talk. Last week, that changed. We were sitting on the couch after dinner, her scrolling on her phone, me half watching something forgettable on Netflix. Out of nowhere, she turns to me and says, "So, I was thinking, you should give me full access to your savings." I laughed, because I genuinely thought she was joking. She didn't laugh back. Instead, she tilted her head, gave me that look she does when she thinks she's about to educate someone, and said, "I'm serious. Couples who don't share everything are toxic." I asked her why she needed access. Not accusatory, just confused. That's when her tone shifted. Cold. Annoyed. Like I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. She said, "Because if you don't, that's financial abuse." And something in my chest went very still. I didn't respond right away. Not because I was stunned, but because I was trying to understand how we got there so casually. Like she'd just accused me of forgetting to buy milk. I asked her to repeat it. Calmly. She sighed, loud and exaggerated, like I was being deliberately dense. "Aaron, controlling money is literally one of the main forms of abuse. I've read about this. You keeping your savings locked away where I can't see or touch it is a power imbalance." That word, power, kept coming up with her lately. I told her I wasn't controlling anything. The money was mine. I paid my share. I never questioned her spending. I never told her what she could or couldn't buy. I just didn't hand over my bank login. She smirked. Actually smirked. "That's exactly what an abuser would say," she replied. "You don't think you're doing anything wrong." Something about the way she said it felt rehearsed. Like she'd practiced this argument in the shower or with her friends. I asked her if someone had put this idea in her head. Wrong move. She snapped upright and said, "Wow. So now I can't even have my own thoughts? You really do see me as beneath you." I remember noticing how fast the conversation escalated. 10 minutes earlier, we were arguing about what to watch. Now I was apparently an abusive partner. She went on a rant about trust. About how real couples don't hide things. About how if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, she wouldn't even know what accounts existed. I told her we could talk about planning, beneficiaries, wills, normal adult stuff. "That's not the same," she said sharply. "That still puts you in control." I asked her directly, "What are you actually asking for?" She crossed her arms. "Your login. All of it. Savings, investments, everything. Full transparency." I said no. Not angrily. Not dramatically. Just no. Her face changed instantly. No yelling yet. Just this tight, offended smile. "Okay," she said slowly. "Then let me be clear. What you're doing is financial abuse, and I won't stay in a relationship where I'm being controlled." That was the moment. The exact moment. Not because she wanted access to my money, but because she was willing to label me an abuser to get it. I nodded and said, "You're right." She blinked. "Excuse me." "You're right," I repeated. "This isn't healthy." She relaxed, visibly. Thought she'd won. Then I added, "So we're done." The silence after that felt heavy, like the air dropped out of the room. For a second, she just stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "We're what?" she asked. "Done," I said again, just as calm. My heart was beating hard, but my voice didn't shake. That surprised me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just felt clear. She laughed, short and sharp. You're being dramatic. Sit down. I stayed where I was. No, I said. I'm not giving you access to my money, and I'm not staying with someone who calls me abusive when they don't get what they want. Her face hardened instantly. So you're punishing me for setting boundaries? That word again. Boundaries. Everything was a buzzword with her lately. I'm responding to yours, I replied. You said you won't stay? I'm agreeing. She stood up and started pacing, running her hands through her hair like this was suddenly my meltdown. Unbelievable. Do you hear yourself? You're throwing away a 2-year relationship over money. No, I said. I'm ending it over manipulation. That's when the insults started. Not yelling. Lena didn't yell. She did something worse. She talked slowly, deliberately, like she was explaining something to a child. You're selfish, she said. You've always been. You hide behind logic because you don't know how to be generous. Any woman would see this as a red flag. I nodded. Okay. That seemed to irritate her more than arguing would have. So that's it, she asked. You just walk away? Yes. She scoffed. You think you're some kind of hero right now. I don't, I said. I think I'm tired. She crossed her arms again and leaned against the counter. You'll regret this. You'll realize how hard it is to find someone who actually challenges you. I picked up my keys from the table. I don't need to be challenged by someone trying to control me. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. Where are you going? She asked. For a walk, I said. When I come back, we can talk logistics. But the relationship part is over. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something cutting, then stopped herself. Switch tactics. You know, she said quietly. Most men would be grateful to have a girlfriend who wants to build something real. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing. No pull. No guilt. I want peace, I said. Not access requests. I walked out before she could respond, and for the first time in 2 years, the silence felt like relief. I walked for almost an hour. No music, no phone scrolling. Just me, the cold air, and that strange calm that comes after you finally stop arguing with reality. When I got back, the apartment lights were all on. Every single one. That should have been my first clue. Lena was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, my notebook beside it. The one I used to track bills and savings goals. She didn't look up when I came in. I made a list, she said, tapping the table. Since you want to be impulsive, I figured I'd be practical. I didn't sit down. She finally glanced up, annoyed. We need to talk about how this is going to work. You can't just kick me out. I'm not, I said. We're both on the lease. We'll handle it like adults. She rolled her eyes. There you go again. Detached. Cold. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I noticed she'd already poured herself a glass of wine. It wasn't even 9 p.m. I told my sister what you said, she continued. She agrees this is financial abuse. Honestly, I'm being generous, even staying calm. That word again. Abuse. Thrown around like a tool. I asked her why my notebook was open. Oh, she said casually. I was just trying to understand what you're hiding. That did it. I told her to close the laptop. Now, she laughed. You're acting guilty. No, I said. You're crossing a line. She shut it, hard, and stood up. So what? Now you're going to lock everything down even more. Prove my point. I took a breath. Lena, listen carefully. We are broken up. I don't owe you explanations, access, or justification anymore. Her face flushed red. After everything I've invested in you. That stopped me. What exactly did you invest? I asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Tried again. Time. Emotional labor. Support. I nodded. So did I. She stepped closer. You think you're so superior because you make more money. I never said that. You don't have to, she snapped. It's written all over you. That's when I realized something uncomfortable but clarifying. This was never about shared finances. It was about control. About leveling the field in a way that only benefited her. I grabbed my overnight bag from the closet and started packing essentials. Her voice sharpened. If you walk out again, don't bother coming back. I zipped the bag and looked at her. I already did. And for the first time since this started, she looked scared. I stayed at a friend's place that night. Spare room, clean sheets, no questions asked. He didn't push for details, just handed me a beer and said, couch or bed. That was enough. The next morning, my phone was full. Missed calls. Long texts. Voice notes I didn't open. By the time I finally checked, the tone had already shifted. The first messages were angry. accusations about abandonment, about how I ran away when things got real. Then came the rewrites. I didn't mean abuse like that. You're twisting my words. We were just having a conversation. By noon, she was bargaining. We don't have to share everything right now. Maybe just visibility, not access. We can talk to a therapist. I didn't respond. That afternoon, I went back to the apartment with my friend. Not for emotional support, just a witness. I didn't trust her not to twist things later. Lena was waiting. She'd cleaned. Like deep cleaned. Candles lit. Music low. She was dressed like it was date night. You brought backup, she said, eyes flicking to my friend. Just here to grab my stuff, I replied. Her jaw tightened. You're really doing this? I nodded. She followed me room to room, narrating. You're acting like I stole from you. I was trying to build a future. You're proving you don't value partnership. When I picked up my documents folder, she snapped. So that's it, she said. You get to walk away with everything? I stopped and looked at her. Everything I brought in, yes. She laughed bitterly. God, you're such a stereotype. I didn't ask which one. As we headed out, she said the line she probably thought would land hardest. You know you'll never find someone who cares enough to fight for this. I paused at the door, turned back, and said quietly, I don't want someone who fights me. She didn't follow us out. That night, I changed every password. Bank accounts, email, cloud storage. Not because I was scared, but because I was done pretending trust meant exposure. 2 days later, I signed a new lease. And for the first time since we started dating, my money and my life felt like my own again. I thought that would be the end of it. Clean break. Move on. Learn the lesson and don't look back. I underestimated how hard Lena took losing control. A week after I moved out, she emailed me. Not texted, emailed. Subject line, documentation. Inside was a long, structured message. Bullet points. Headers. It read less like something from an ex and more like a case file. She claimed I had financially destabilized her by leaving. That my refusal to share savings had created dependency dynamics. That my sudden exit caused emotional and economic harm. She attached screenshots, rent statements, old Venmo payments, even a photo of groceries I'd bought months ago, circled in red like evidence. At the bottom, she wrote, I'm not trying to escalate this, but I need you to acknowledge the harm you caused. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I felt guilty, but because I finally saw the pattern clearly. Everything with Lena had always been about narrative. Whoever controlled the story controlled the situation. When she couldn't access my money, she reframed it as abuse. When I left, it became harm. If I stayed silent, she could decide what the silence meant. So I replied once. Short. Direct. Do not contact me again except regarding lease logistics. Any further accusations should go through a lawyer. She responded within 5 minutes. Wow. Threatening me now? I didn't answer. 2 days later, she posted something vague on social media. No names, but clear enough. A long caption about men who weaponize finances and how emotional abuse doesn't always look loud. Comments flooded in. Heart emojis. So proud of you. You're so strong. A mutual friend texted me asking if I was okay. That one hurt more than the post. Not because I cared what strangers thought, but because Lena knew exactly how to frame herself as the victim without ever mentioning the part where she demanded my bank passwords. That night, sitting alone in my new place, I finally felt the anger hit. Not explosive, just heavy. I realized something important then. I didn't dodge a breakup. I dodged a future where every boundary would have been turned into an accusation. And that thought made the anger fade almost as quickly as it came. About 2 weeks after the breakup, Lena tried one last angle. She showed up at my work. Not inside. Security wouldn't allow that. But in the lobby, leaning against the wall like she just happened to be there. I found out because the receptionist messaged me asking if I knew a woman named Lena who says it's urgent. I told her no. Then I sighed and said yes. Against my better judgment, I went down. She looked different. Softer. No sharp edges. Hair pulled back. Neutral clothes. Eyes tired instead of angry. If I didn't know better, I might have believed it was genuine. Hi, Aaron, she said quietly. I didn't hug her. Didn't smile. What do you want? She flinched, just slightly. I think things got out of hand. I waited. She talked. About stress. About fear. About how she'd read too much online. About how the word abuse was too strong and not what she meant. She said she felt abandoned. Said she panicked when she realized how much power I had and how little she had. That part was the closest thing to honesty I'd heard. I didn't want your money, she said. I wanted to know you couldn't leave me stranded. I looked at her for a long moment before answering. That's exactly why I left. Her eyes filled. So that's it. You won't even talk about fixing this. I shook my head. Lena, you tried to trap me with language. You tried to shame me into compliance. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a deal breaker. She whispered, I would have done anything for you. I replied, you would have done anything to me. That landed. She didn't argue after that. Just nodded, wiped her face, and said, I guess I misjudged you. I watched her walk out of the building and felt something close to sympathy, but not regret. Back upstairs, I sat at my desk and realized my hands weren't shaking. My chest wasn't tight. There was no urge to chase closure. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt like I'd stepped out of a storm before it turned into a hurricane. The fallout lingered longer than I expected, not in my life, but around it. Mutual friends started choosing sides without ever asking what actually happened. Some drifted quietly. Others asked careful, loaded questions like, so, what really happened with the money thing? As if there was a version where I looked reasonable and another where I didn't. I kept my answers short. We wanted different things. Anything longer felt like inviting debate. Lena, meanwhile, kept posting. Not directly about me anymore, but adjacent. Articles about emotional labor. Infographics about invisible abuse. Quotes about men who fear commitment disguised as self-respect. She never named me, but she didn't have to. Anyone who knew us knew. What surprised me was how little it bothered me. A month earlier, I would have obsessed over every comment, every implication. Now, it felt distant, like reading about a character in a book I'd already finished. One night, I ran into her friend Maya at a grocery store. We'd always gotten along. She looked uncomfortable, like she'd been rehearsing something. Hey, can I ask you something? She said. I nodded. Did you really refuse to share money because you didn't trust Lena? I met her eyes. I refused because trust doesn't require surrender. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, that's not how she told it. I know, I replied. Maya hesitated. For what it's worth, this isn't the first time she's done something like that. That stuck with me. After that, things settled. The lease issue resolved cleanly. No legal nonsense. No surprise emails. Just distance. And in that distance, I noticed how much lighter my life felt. No tension around spending. No subtle monitoring. No need to justify every boundary like it was a personal flaw. One evening, sitting alone in my new place, I checked my savings account. Not to guard it, not to stress over it, but just because I could. It wasn't the number that made me smile. It was the fact that no one felt entitled to it anymore. That's when I understood something important. The moment Lena called me abusive, the relationship was already over. I just happened to be the one who acknowledged it first. About 3 months after everything ended, something unexpected happened. Nothing dramatic. No confrontation. No message from Lena. Just a quiet realization on a random Tuesday night while I was making dinner. I wasn't bracing for anything anymore. No mental prep before checking my phone. No spike of irritation when a notification popped up. No background tension humming under normal moments. I was just there. Cooking. Existing. Calm. That's when it hit me how much energy the relationship had been quietly draining. With Lena, everything had been a negotiation disguised as intimacy. Every boundary was something she evaluated, pushed, reframed. If I said no, it became a conversation about why my no was problematic. If I stood firm, it became a flaw in my character. Nothing was ever allowed to just be mine. I started noticing the contrast in small ways. Friends asked favors without expectations attached. Coworkers respected a simple, can't right now. Even disagreements felt clean, no psychological gymnastics afterward. One night, I ran into Lena again. Same coffee shop we used to go to. Total coincidence. She saw me first. There was a brief flicker of something on her face, surprise, maybe irritation, but she recovered fast. Always did. Hey, she said measured. Hey, I replied. She asked how I'd been. I said good. She nodded like she'd expected that answer and didn't like it. You seem different, she said. I am. She tilted her head. Still guarding your independence like it's gold? I smiled just slightly. No, I'm just not giving it away. She didn't have a response for that. As she walked away, I realized something else too. If I'd stayed, if I'd handed over access just to keep the peace, I wouldn't have peace now. I'd have constant surveillance dressed up as trust. Compliance mistaken for love. I finished my coffee alone, unbothered. And that's when I knew, whatever story Lena needed to tell about me, I didn't need to correct it anymore. A few weeks after that, a mutual friend sent me a screenshot. I didn't ask for it, but I'm glad I saw it. It was a post Lena had written late at night, longer than her usual vague captions. She talked about losing someone because they couldn't handle accountability, about how men fear transparency when they benefit from imbalance. The comments were split this time. Less blind support, more quiet questions. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Not every ending needs justice. Some just need distance. Looking back, the moment she said the words financial abuse, something snapped into place for me. Not because the accusation scared me, but because it showed how easily she was willing to weaponize language to get compliance. If I'd given in, it wouldn't have stopped there. Next, it would have been how I spent my time. Then who I talked to. Then how I made decisions. All under the banner of partnership. I didn't dodge a bullet. I dodged a slow erosion. I'm not angry at her anymore. I don't hate her. I just see her clearly now, and clarity has a way of killing attachment without drama. My life is quiet these days. Stable. My money sits where I put it. My choices don't need defending. When I say no, it stays no. And when I say yes, it actually means something. So here's why I'm posting this. If someone tells you that your boundaries are abuse, pause. If someone says trust means access, pause. If someone reframes your autonomy as cruelty, pause. Love doesn't require surrender. Trust doesn't require exposure. And partnership doesn't start with ultimatums. She said, "You're not giving me full access to your savings. That's financial abuse." I replied, "You're right." And then I walked away. Not because I was wrong, but because I finally understood I was done.